19 to 4, Jazz Radio 94.1 FM here on the Gold Coast. And Slava Grigoryan is one of the world's great guitarists. He's toured worldwide and released a number of critically acclaimed albums. And Slava's on the line. Thanks very much for joining us, Slava.
Good afternoon.
You're just waiting for a ferry at the moment, are you?
I am. I've got a couple of days off with my family. We're up in Sydney at the moment, and unfortunately I couldn't be somewhere quieter for this chat with you.
Well, that's okay. It's not a bad line at all. Now, you come from a very musical family. Your mother and father were both violinists. They must have had a huge influence on you.
Yeah, they did. My earliest memories are of them practicing and of all of us sitting down and listening to music together. And they, apart from being classically trained violinists, they were very broad-minded, musically speaking. Dad was a jazz drummer for about 20 years as well, professionally, and we kind of grew up with a whole bunch of different influences hitting us from all sides.
Well, did you try other instruments before turning to the guitar?
No, the guitar was the first instrument that I was given when I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I really fell in love with it. And one of the things that really got to me about the guitar was that it's just so versatile, and it has a place in so many different genres. And although I studied classically, I've always been very interested and very involved with non-classical music.
Well, you started playing professionally at the age of just 12, so your life must have been pretty mapped out by then.
Yes and no. It's funny. I was already gigging very early, and being booked to play with chamber orchestras and as a soloist. But to be honest, I didn't really know what I was going to do when I finished high school. I'd already recorded my first album, and things were kind of really ticking along, but I still wasn't sure. So I gave myself a year to try and figure things out, and I moved to Europe and started working out there, and just fell in love with the whole musical life and musical world, and never really had a chance to look back.
You've toured the world and played in some wonderful venues with some great musicians. What have been some of the highlights of your career?
Oh, look, so many different ones for very different reasons. I think every time you play in a famous hall, whether it's the Opera House or Carnegie Hall or Royal Festival Hall in London, they stay with you forever. Playing with some of the big major orchestras are also wonderful memories, like working with the London Philharmonic, for example. But, sometimes it's the quiet, smaller concerts where something magical happens, whether it's a collaboration with someone, and some particular magic happens on stage, or when the setting and the circumstances around a gig are very special. You remember those gigs for different reasons.
So do you find when you're playing with some musicians that you just develop a special rapport and you just really work well together?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it's very rare that I guess I get thrown into situations where I'm working musicians for the first time. Usually I've gotten to know the people and we kind of agree or decide that, it might be a good thing to play and together. And of course, by that stage, you're sort of already getting on as people, and the chances are that you already like each other's music a lot. And I've never really been disappointed in that way. So many collaborations have been very memorable and very very lasting as well. Most partnerships that I've had keep on going for a very long time.
Well, that's a great thing. Yeah. I speak to a lot of musicians here at Jazz Radio 94.1, and many of them, they say that they're always developing their style and learning new tricks. Now, do you feel you actually improve with age as a guitarist?
Absolutely. I think physically there's nothing holding you back from getting better until maybe the age of 65, 70. It really depends on what kind of physical shape you're in. Some of my biggest heroes are the ones that, get better and better and keep on pushing boundaries and pushing the limits. Actually, a lot of great jazz musicians in particular, my biggest influences, people like Joe Zawinul and Herbie Hancock, or even a great friend of mine and one of my biggest heroes, Ralph Towner, who I work with a lot. He's 72 next year, and still going as strong as ever.
Well, you're very well known as a classical guitarist, but you also drift from one genre to the other a little bit. What's your favourite genre?
Oh, look, I think that's the thing. I think after being inspired and being involved with so many different things, it's actually that kind of combination of styles that I really get a kick out of nowadays, particularly in the music that I'm either involved with in terms of arrangements or music that I'm composing by myself or with other people. And it's always, there's always for me, the most special combination, I guess, is when there's a fantastic structure to a piece. So, I guess that's where the classical influence comes from, but also where there are free areas and improvisational sections where you can just go off and fly and make something different, every time you play a work. And I think that sort of, I know I'm not being very specific in terms of genres, but it's actually, finding that right blend is what I really love the most.
Talking to the trumpeter Chris Botti recently, and I asked him what made a great musician, and he had a very interesting answer. He said part of being a great musician is being able to tour and tolerate all the sort of residual things that go along with touring and playing in all these concerts, touring around the world.
I think you have to be, very, very focused and very strong. And I think, if there are any hesitations about having a life in music, I think, it's all going to come crashing down as soon as you start touring because it's really bloody hard. That what people often think of a touring musician's life as being very, very glamorous and very relaxed and appealing, and almost the exact opposite. You're always lugging gear around, you're always late, you're always having to smile and perform with no time for rehearsals, and you're always rushing around. It's very difficult. You've got to be really, really prepared, and I think that is right. I think being a busy touring musician is a very special factor.
Well, you're coming up to Brisbane. You're going to be touring Brisbane. You'll be at our sponsor, the Brisbane Powerhouse. That's on Tuesday, October the 4th at 7:30 p.m. Now, what can we expect at that concert?
Oh, this is a very specific collaboration. It's called the Band of Brothers. It's actually a quartet of two groups of siblings. Myself and my brother Leonard, both playing guitars, and two Egyptian brothers, Joseph and James Tawadros. Joe plays the oud, which is, for those people that aren't familiar with it, it's like an Arabic lute. And James plays mostly the rik, which is an Egyptian tambourine, a swag of other Middle Eastern percussion instruments.
And you'll also be performing at QPAC as well, I believe.
Yes, and that's, I think, about a week after, and that's with another ensemble that I play with quite a lot, the Southern Cross Soloists, who are a wonderful Australian group based in Brisbane, and this will be very specific, and there some new and some old classical works written for guitar and other instruments.
Well, sounds like two concerts not to be missed. Slava, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and better let you get back to the ferry there in Sydney.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm about to get on. Sorry about all the noise.
No, that's all right. Look, creates a little bit of atmosphere there, and good to hear that the mobile phone's working well and the line's good too.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Slava. That's great. Slava Grigoryan, one of the world's greatest guitarists. It's 3:50, and taking us to the news, Rick Braun.